The question is the House to now adjourn. I call the honourable member for Bowman.
Speaker, Australia has a fine tradition of enjoying a night out. Being able to go and celebrate with friends is something that our ambient temperature allows us to do all over the country, every month, every night, at least weekend nights of the year. But of course we've been assailed by images on television of crime, drug abuse and other antisocial behaviour associated with going out at night. And it should be a safe thing to do. No parent deserves to have their child come home in a body bag. No family should lose one of their own simply because of completely out of control alcohol-fuelled violence. That's amplified by illicit drugs and now more recently anabolic steroids. Speaker, in Queensland, I commend the Safe Night Out strategy, which is the result of probably some of the widest social policy consultation that I've seen from a state government. And the pretext to this work, of course, is the crackdown on organised crime that we saw in Queensland that's paying dividends already, with a percentage reduction that's significant in parts of South East Queensland, Logan and the Gold Coast, where property crime fell by around 11%. Part of a long-term trend, I concede, but it's a trend in the right direction, and it is a reward for the Newman government doing and going where previous state governments were reluctant to go before. Of course, some of the initiatives in this very, very complex Safe Night Out strategy represent what is a multifactorial response to a complex area. And it's hard to impinge on the rights of an individual having a drink until there's a very sudden switch where they are a danger to themselves or others. It's complicated, of course, by much of this happening in private licensed premises, where it's very, very hard to have constant surveillance available. But I want to make a few points in the limited time available. The first one is we have technology, and we can link up in these drink-safe areas all of the ID and driver's licence scanning facilities that are available. We need to know everyone who's going in and out of these licensed premises. Second, we don't need the superficial Labor response that the solution here is either curtailing the hours of licensed premises, or secondly, that we need to push out more services to people, because the more services we get to them, the better they'll be. No, ultimately, Speaker, it comes back to individual responsibility. Hazed as that is by the effects of alcohol, in the end, individuals must be responsible for their actions. And if an individual is engaging in antisocial behaviour, failing to move on, failing to follow a police directive, we're not even talking about violent conduct, then there has to be swift and painful and immediate consequences for that behaviour. We need to empower people working on the doors of these premises to be able to sign a stat dec and identify that person to make sure they're dealt with properly. But let's go back a step, Speaker. Why are taxpayers having their money spent on irresponsible and antisocial behaviour? Why is it that we are funding hundreds of people to be working penalty rates late at night simply to control alcohol-fuelled abuse? That's not good enough. Now, people who contravene these basic social norms need to be paying their way. And you know what? It's a curious thing to me that if you are taken through a court of law and you receive a financial penalty, a person who has a job can be garnished, but a person who's receiving welfare cannot. So a person who's on a public payment can avoid that and simply have the charges transferred to SPUR or the equivalent state debt collection agency, and they can even go to jail in lieu of that penalty. But a person who's actually earning a private salary can be garnished. That's not right. That's not fair. And we need to connect the federal government by recognising state entities, including public housing, under the Social Security Act. It is time that you pay your rent, whether it is public or private housing. And it's time that if you take up public housing, you agree to a mandatory deduction from your income, just as occurs to someone receiving a private income. Now we will see in Queensland police empowered to move people on, empowered to ban someone for their own good for 24 hours from these precincts, or to ban them for a longer period of time. There will be mandatory community service for those who act in an inappropriate and antisocial manner, but it should be way more than the maximum currently allowed in Queensland of a mere 240 hours. Speaker, that's 5 weeks. And what we need is 6 months of community service for many people that haven't had the benefit of parental and social support to give them a chance in life. Let's look after these people engage them, get them back into work, and the surest way to avoid alcohol abuse is to start with a full day's work and a week of work.